Hi, I hope you're doing well. One of the main questions I get when people see an arrow beside one of the planets in their body graph is what exactly does it mean? The other thing is when I write on the community page and I talk about exaltations and also detriments, and sometimes what I term as neutral, people want to know what that means as well. Ultimately, it is all about exaltations and detriments. In fact, when I first started learning human design, that was one thing that I asked about myself. What do these arrows mean? And I was told that eventually the arrows would be removed. Well, we know that that didn't happen. And what I do know is that they are important to understand our body graph more. They're also important for transits because they tell us a lot about different planets and how they might express. The one main thing that I really want to get across is something that I say over and over again. There is no detriment and exaltation that is better or worse. So, in other words, it's just different expressions of the energy. And based on what Ra Uruhu said, that I heard him say in a recording, was that that was the one thing he had sort of regretted doing when he did make the human design system, is calling it exaltations and detriment. Because if you look at the astrology perspective, it immediately puts it on a different slant, in that if you have an exaltation, it's considered a more beneficial, more easy flowing energy, whereas an exaltation is an energy that can eventually become better in time, but it's something that needs to be worked on. If you look at the exaltations and detriments of different planets and in lines, you will also notice that some of the exaltations and the detriments, they don't seem that like there's a real positive spin to either one of them, or they both sound positive. So there is, again, no positive or negative. So if you're born with an arrow that's up or down, then ultimately it basically is saying that it is fixed. Now, when a planet fixes a line, that means it is specifically in a line that it has influence over. There are actually lines that are no longer in play. And one of the best gates to see that play out is the gate 21, because there are a lot of lines that are activated by Pluto, and Pluto hasn't been there for a very long time. With the orbit of Pluto being about 248 years, these are energies that won't be in play for a while. And even Neptune can do that as well. And even in the gate 21, Neptune has an influence as well on the planetary lines. So what that means is, for the most part, when you have a planet that is activating a gate in a specific line and there's no arrow up or down, that's saying that both expressions of the energy can play out in your life. Some people will say, well, I used to be like this and now I'm like this, based on the energy and the exaltation and the detriment. Usually there's an experimentation with the energy, and you learn as you get older how it's going to play out in your life. And then you also have, sometimes you will have a star by a planet, or you'll have an arrow going up and an arrow going down. That's called a juxtaposition and fixing. And what that says is that both the exaltation and the detriment are fixed. So in other words, you can move back and forth between the energy very easily. Whereas sometimes, and why that makes a big difference would be because if you have a planet activating a gate and it is sort of what I would consider neutral, so there's no fixing at all, there's no exaltation or detriment, it means that when somebody comes with the detriment or the exaltation, they can influence your energy. Or if you have a planetary transit and it brings exaltation or detriment, again, that can affect your energy. It can sort of make you more fixed in one side as opposed to the other. Now, if you have a juxtaposition, that means that it doesn't matter who brings energy to you. It doesn't matter if there's a planetary transit that brings in the exaltation or detriment. You will always remain in your fixed way of being, whatever that is for you, and how the expression of the gate plays out. So that's really an important thing to remember. And I know a lot of people will wonder, what does that star mean? It like, is it special or something like that? And yes, it is special in one way. And on the other hand, it's very mundane in its explanation. It is just the activation and the fixing of the exaltation and also the detriment. Now I'm going to go back to the gate 21, because I think it's a great gate to show an example of how the energy can be out of play based on certain lines being activated by either Pluto or Neptune. Now, if a line is activated by Uranus or anything below Uranus, Saturn, Jupiter, et cetera, that doesn't change, because we always know that generally there's going to be somebody in the world who's 84 years old, unless things change. And Jupiter's cycle is about 84 years. So that energy will usually always be in play. So now if we look at the gate 21, we look at the gate 21 line 2 and it says might is right. Now we have an exaltation of Mars and we have a detriment of Neptune. Neptune hasn't been in this energy for a long time. The next time it will be back in this energy will be 2029. So right now we don't have that activation in play. So when a planet is moving through that energy, then or you have it in your body graph, then it will always be the exaltation. You will always have the so it's almost like it's a pseudo fixing. So there is no detriment in the global aura at this point. And we only need one person in the global aura to have the energy because that shifts the whole trajectory based on what Ra Uru said. So you only need one person with the energy. And when that one person passes away, then the energy goes with them. If it's one of these sort of Neptunian or Plutonic energies that is fixing a line. So keep that in mind if you're looking at your own body graph, that it may appear as though it is not fixed, but it truly is when it is a line, when it is a line that is out of play. Now, I will do more research on lines that are out of play because, it's always changing. I mean, when you think about it, Ra Uru, who passed away in 2011, so a lot of his work was based sort of right up until that point. So what he was talking about exaltations and detriments and lines that were out of play, it's shifted obviously since then because it's quite a few years, so things can change. And so I'm going to do a full study of it to figure it out for myself, so that as I find out the information, I will let you know so that you have more of an idea. The one thing we actually just lost was there was a man who was born in Venezuela. He died early April, and he was 115 years old. He was the oldest man in the world. He had the gate 53 line 1 in exaltation. And so the theory is that when he passed away, that those exaltations left with him basically. So that is where we're losing the energy. And so there is the next oldest person in the world who's carrying energy probably. And it really only matters if it's somebody who carries energy that is activated by Pluto or Neptune that is sort of connecting with the line, because Pluto and Neptune don't have an interaction with every one of the gates. They only have specific gates that they're interacting with or that they have influence over. And going forward, I'm going to try to include the fixing, the pseudo fixing, I'll call it, of the line so that we are aware of how the energy might play out in the collective. And the last thing to say about the fixing of the energy, or if you have an energy that is not fixed, a gate that is not fixed by a planet. So somebody is bringing you energy or you're interacting through electromagnetics and they have a detriment and it is fixing your line. And so you could say somebody brings that energy out in you, whatever that is. So it could be bringing out the exaltation or it could be bringing out the detriment based on the energy. So you might notice certain people that you have a certain way of interacting with them. And sometimes looking at the lines and how it interacts with your body graph is a great study to see this energy in play and how it can be so influential. So I hope that was helpful. I hope it answered all the questions, and I will answer more questions in the future that anybody has. And until next time, take care of yourself and bye for now.